Hi everyone, I hope you guys are doing good. So as a part of our Python tutorial series, in last lecture we learned about lambda functions, right? How to use lambda functions with regular functions, right? Now in this lecture we will learn about Python class, objects and methods, right? So without wasting time, let's start. So first we'll see the normal functions, right? So this is a normal function I have written here. So that is a doubler function and it is returning double of the value integer which I'm passing, right? So let's execute this normal function first. Okay, and let's check the flow. So let me just paste it here. So our doubler function got defined, right? Now to call that function, there are two methods, right? Either you can directly call the functions using that name, function name that is doubler, and pass the parameter, right? So I'm passing parameter as 10. So it is giving me 20, right? That is one way, or another way is you can have one variable x and you can take the result of this doubler functions output into x and then print x, right? So that is another method in which you can call a regular function, right? So let me just print this x. Okay, let me just print this x. Okay, so let me just paste it here. Print x 20, right? So this is the regular flow using def keyword. We define functions and then we call that function using directly with that function name, right? Nothing is required, right? You can directly call that function with that name and you can pass the parameter. You can save the result in one variable and you can print that, right? So this is the normal flow of a function, right? But Python is a language which supports both this normal function as well as it supports methods as well. Okay, so there is a difference between this normal function and methods. Either both, I mean, both function and methods both are defined similarly using def keyword, right? But there are differences. You can directly call this function with the name, but you cannot call methods using directly with the name. Okay, so methods are related with the objects, right? And objects are created from the class, right? So we are going to learn the concept of class, objects, and methods, right? In Python. So Python is a language which supports both this normal function as well as OOPS programming using class and objects, similar to Java, right? Java does not support these normal functions, but that's completely object-oriented programming, right? But Python supports both. Okay, so let's define a class. Okay, so the syntax for that, so you give the class keyword and then I'm defining a class which is a student, right? And then I'm defining a variable which would be a class variable. Okay, so dress code equals to formal. Okay, so this is a class variable I'm defining, right? And then I'm defining a method called def, and this is the initializer. Okay, initializer method where we have some arguments, right, for initializing objects when we create objects from this class. Okay, so let's first understand what is class, objects, and method, right? If you guys don't know the basics, so class is a frame, right? Class is a frame from uh, which will have uh, the variables as well as methods, right? So class will have variables as well as methods, right? What is object? Objects is just a copy of class, but it is little bit modified in terms what value we are passing, what initialized value we are passing while creating the objects, right? So class is a frame, objects is a copy of class, so there can be multiple copies created from a frame, right? So class, consider class student as a frame, and then can be multiple objects can be created from this student, right? And that student object will vary based on the initialization values or initialization parameter we are passing while creating objects, right? And class also has methods which will be once object is created, right? So this method we can access, class method we can access using the objects, right? So this method will also be linked to those objects. So once a copy of class is created in form of objects, so they can access all the class variable, they can also access all the class methods, right? And this initializer method, this one is defined in Python, right? Like this def underscore underscore init underscore underscore, and it will have parameter for initial definition, right? Or when we create object, right? So we'll have to pass this three parameter, right? Self is a default parameter which will always be there. So while creating the object, we'll pass only these two parameter, stream and timing, right? So I'm defining this is the initializer method having three parameters, self, stream, and timing, right? So this is a class of student, right? So dress code is a common variable that is formal, right? So all the student has formal dress code. Then I'm defining an initializer method which is having stream and timing, right? So there can be multiple student. Student is a class, right? But there can be three types of or multiple types of students, right? Can be science student, commerce student, or arts student, right? And their timings can be morning, day, or evening, right? So I'm defining two variable, stream and timing, to take the stream of the student variable, student object, and timing of that student object, right? So this is a default initializer method which is used to create objects and which is used to assign the default value of the object, right? Similar to the constructor in Java. Okay. Then I'm defining a method called show stream timings, right? So I'm just giving self. One thing to note that all the methods in class in Python is having first parameter as self, right? It's not mandatory to pass, right? Anything in this self. So if it has no parameter, then it will have only self, and if it has more parameter, then it will have self comma the other parameters, right? So this is the second method where this method is to fetch details. Okay, so I'm just giving self, right? No parameter passed, and I'm just printing the variable this is, and I'm concatenating this message with this self dot stream, right? So self dot stream here, while creating object, it will be assigned to this self dot stream. This stream, whatever I'm passing while creating object, this will be assigned to this self dot stream, right? And all the variables can be accessed using self dot stream key, using self dot keyword, right? So with self dot stream, I can access this value self dot stream, and self dot timing, I can access this self dot timing, right? So I'm just giving a printing a message. This is self stream self dot stream stream having shift timing as this timing, right? So I'm printing this is a example science stream having shift timing as morning, right? One more thing that since this def method, right? So these are the class methods, right? So in class method, you can also reuse return keyword to return the values, right? So you, as similar to function, methods can also return just one value, right? So you can use return and then self dot stream return dot self dot timing, right? Using this return keyword, you can return some values if you want. In this example, we are using print to print both no, stream and timing. Okay. Next method is to modify the details. So method name is change stream timing, right? And one thing to notice that the first letter is a small, similar to Java, right? And then the other S and T are capital. So this is called camel case, right? So first letter for is first letter of first word is a small, and then all the other words will having capital letter in the starting. Okay. Then what I'm doing, I'm passing self, that is the default parameter, and then timing. So I'm passing a timing and I'm changing the timing here, setting the self dot timing equals to timing which I'm passing in this method, right? So whatever timing I will pass in this method, that will be set in this method, right? So that's how we define class, and class is having one class variable, and then it has one initializer method which is used to create object, and then it has some methods which can be used by the objects, right? So now how we'll create objects, right? So to create object, you can create object like this. Like I'm creating an object called science student and using the student class, right? So this is the student class. So I'm giving the class name as a student and passing two parameters, right? So it has self, stream, and timing. We don't need to pass self. We are passing only stream and timing, right? So stream is science and timing is morning, right? So that's how we can create science student object, right? So we can create more object like commerce student, arts student, right? And just by the class name and the initialization parameters, right? So this methods getting called by itself while creating object, and it will set your object variables, right? Self dot stream and self dot timing, whatever object parameter you will pass, right? So let's create this, class student. Okay, so just to define class student, let me just copy it and let me just paste it here. Okay, so I think enter. Okay, so our class got defined, right? So class got defined. Now let's create an object of science student. So my object name is science student. So let me just paste it here, enter. Okay, so you can see science student object is created with the class, right? And I'm passing science and morning, right? So my object is created, right? Now I can, since once the object is created, you can fetch all the methods of the class, right? So this is method 1 to fetch the detail, and this is method 2 to modify the detail, right? And initialization method was used while creating object, right? So by default this method was called while creating object, right? So I can call this show stream timing method, right, using dot object dot, right? So let me just paste it here, right? Science student dot show timing, right? Enter, right? So it is giving me a message. This is a science stream having shift timing as morning, right? So I passed science and morning as parameter. That science and morning gets concatenated and it was used in this function. So stream, right? And it is giving me this print message, right? And how I'm accessing this object variables using self dot stream, right? So that's how you can access object variable, right? Now let's change the let's modify the stream, right? So I'm calling the second method, right? Change stream timing. So I'm giving the timing, right? So timing, science has morning, right? Science, when we initialize this science student object, then we gave morning as timing, right? Let's change it to day. Okay, so I can call this method to set timing as day. So let me just paste it here, right? Science student dot change stream timing, and I'm passing day as a parameter. Note, I'm not passing self parameter, right? Enter. So it has changed the timing, right? To check that it has modified or not, we can again call this method, right? Fetch detail, show stream timing, right? Enter. So you can see this is a science stream having shift timing as day, right? So morning is modified from day, right? So another method to modify the detail we used, right? And we modified it to day, right? And then okay, so then we have a class variable. Okay, so there is one class variable called dress code, right? That is formal. So we define class variable which will be common to all the objects. So that we define as a class variable. Okay, so that will be by default, all the objects will have access to this variable, right? So how you will access, right? So science student that object dot that variable name, right? And since it's a class variable, right, so you can also access using class name dot dress code, right? So let me print first using object, right? So let me try to print using object that class variable student science student dot dress code. So it is giving me formal, right? So we can access using the object name dot variable name. We can also access that class variable using class name dot variable name, right? So you can see we can access class variable, right? Class variable which we defined here, right? Using both object dot variable name and class dot variable name, right? But this is a class variable, right? I cannot no delete this variable using object, right? So let me just show you. Let me just try to delete this object, delete this variable dress code. Okay, using this objects to delete, there is a command called del dot object name dot variable name, right? So let me just paste it here, del dot science student dot dress code, enter, right? So it is giving me an error called student object has no attribute dress code, right? That's how we know that whatever object we created, right? So this is dress code is not a object variable, this is a class variable. Although you can access that variable using objects, right? Using object name, but you cannot modify, you cannot delete that, right? So to delete that, you will have to use class name dot dress code, right? Then only you can delete, right? But stream and when we defined this object, right? When we created this object science student, right? Using this class student, so this variable, this initialization variable, right? These variables are now object variables, right? So I can delete my object variables using object dot this variable dot stream or dot timing, right? So let's try to delete this stream variable. Delete science student dot stream, right? Let's try to paste that. So you can see it is successful, right? So I can delete the stream variable, which is a object variable, right? I am able to delete it, right? So if I call this show stream method to fetch the detail, right? So I should get an error, right? So what is the error? Student object has no attribute stream, right? Because I have just now I have deleted that stream object, stream variable from this science student object, right? You can also delete complete object using del dot object keyword. Okay, so you can just write del dot object name and whole object will be deleted, right? So there will be no object now, right? If you call this function now again, object and dot function, right? So let's see what is the error. Science student is not defined, right? Because science student has been deleted by me, right? So now I hope you guys understood what is the class, how we define class. This is the initialization method, which is by default. It will have first parameter as self and other parameter you can give which you want to set while creating object, right? So this will be a default method, right? And then you can define other class methods which can be accessed using objects, using object dot method name, right? How to create object using this object name like science student or art student or commerce student and give the class name and then pass the parameter like science morning I can part commerce day, right? Then for commerce student commerce underscore stud, right? So I can create a commerce student, right? So once you create an object you can access all the methods from the class, right? You can even access class variable as well, right? So I hope you understood the difference between function and methods, right? Methods cannot be called directly. It can be called using only object dot method name and then with the parameter. Then only you can call. So only after creating object only you can call methods, right? It's not no similar to function. Function can be called directly using this name, right? So I hope you guys understood the concepts of class, objects and method in Python. If you guys like this lecture, please subscribe my channel. Thank you guys.